Hey there. I want to welcome Rob Castellon. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's close enough, but yeah, I'll take
Close
it.
enough. My Spanish is poor, but Rob runs Wiretap Records out of California. We've had several Wiretap bands here in the Rock Room.
Mm.
Which Wiretap bands have we had?
Off the top of my head, probably I know you've had, our buddies Avenues,
Avenues.
in the rock room. Wolves and Wolves and Wolves and Wolves have been in there.
Yep,
I know the guys Spanish Love Songs have been in there previously in the past.
yep.
Did you have the guys in High as well?
We've had High.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's,
Get Married. You
Get
did some
Married.
get
Yep.
married stuff.
Yep.
Tiny Stills.
Kind of Stills. Yeah. Dude, you've had a ton of our artists, so thank you for that. Break Lights have been in there, right? Also, right, I believe.
Yes.
Uh,
No, but
sure.
I've been talking with
That's
Steve,
right.
so
Yeah.
they might come soon.
Yeah. After 6 years now, it's starting to kind of blend, man. You know what I mean? You've been doing it long enough now where, things kind of start blending. Like, wait, was that 2015, 2016? They kind of start blending now,
Yeah.
which is crazy to think.
Yeah, so
So,
I wanted to do some of these different kind of interviews just to talk to some people that are kind of behind a lot of the artists that we have perform in our videos because
right.
there's kind of a whole world that goes on that helps these bands enable, and it helps enable these bands to do what they do. So I thought, a lot of people, your everyday person probably doesn't know a whole lot about what goes on with a record label, what they even do. So I figured you'd be a great person to have on here.
Yeah, man, I'm flattered. Thank you.
Um, so what kind of crazy idea possessed you to start a record label?
Yeah. I think I've told the story in the past. It's kind of, I'll say the same kind of quick story again. I think I started the label in 2014. It was like September of 2014. And I guess I was kind of just going through a time in my life where, I don't know, like I was not creatively fulfilled, like I was working 9 to 5 gig. Yeah, although I was working a quote unquote fun gig, I currently do work in radio. So it's like I was still working a gig that I enjoyed, but to some degree, I didn't think I was kind of like in touch with kind of what was going on in kind of, independent music and stuff. I had kind of, slowly kind of drifted away from, the quote unquote scene, right?
Hmm.
Um, so like in a lot of ways, it was kind of actually, well, actually, I'll kind of backtrack actually. The year prior to actually me starting Wiretap, I'd actually kind of a sort of ventured into helping a local record label. I'm sorry, a local record store here in Orange County. That, long story short, it kind of it didn't end up working out. We had kind of a different vision for it. But while I was working with that store owner, there was kind of the talk we talked about, kind of like actually like maybe creating an imprint and working with local bands and whatnot. Even though that actually never ended up happening with the actual store, that side of it actually kind of like still kind of stuck with me. That I wanted to maybe like pursue maybe like putting out some 7 inches or, like working with local bands and whatnot. So I think when that store kind of went away and eventually ended up closing, that part of me still kind of wanted to maybe like, more of a bucket list kind of that type of thing. I wanted to be like, I want to just put out a 7 inch because just for the sake of putting out a 7 inch. So when that bug kind of hit me, I was like, I just want to put out a 7 inch, and told my wife, I'm like, hey, I think I want to do this, and she, jokes around and say like, hey, I think you always wanted to, pursue it, but I kept telling her like, no, I just want to do one 7 inch and I'll be done with it, just to kind of, just to kind of like put it out of my system, and whatnot. So, I had been kind of in touch with some local bands kind of during that time, and one of those bands actually was the band Audie Karate. Their
Yep.
side project was a band called Indian School. So I had been in touch with those guys and another local band by the name of Wash for Horses, which is kind of a local indie rock, kind of like the Strokes-ish, kind of like indie rock type sound. So, obviously, like approached them about putting out a 7 inch just for my own fulfillment, right? So yeah, I think I made a lot of rookie mistakes. Yeah, I think like a lot of small labels kind of end up doing kind of little a little ambitious in their first, I pressed like 507 inches,
Yeah.
three different variants, of course, and a little over ambitious, and it sold fairly well. Like it didn't. I think I pressed 500 and it sold maybe about 150 of them, which is pretty fair for a for a 7 inch, right? But the majority of those were, friends and family, and like the band's friends and that kind of thing. So they didn't really like spark or really kind of like take off, but I was happy with it, and it was enough for me to be like, I want to continue, I want to keep doing this, and it kind of after that, like, I keep going back to like I wasn't really kind of in touch with like the local scene, and I was like, how do I find out about new bands? How do most people find out about new bands? It's like you basically have to dive into what's going on, so I literally, dove into like reading punk news regularly all the time now, and reading New Noise magazine and Dying Scene, and For the Love of Punk, like at the time that was still, a thing. I think they're defunct now, right?
I think
Pretty
so.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Because Kendra used to do a lot for them,
yeah,
and then now she has Bad Copy. So
exactly. Yeah. So, just kind of doing that, and then I literally dove into like, being familiar with what was going on, with local, not local bands, but like just young bands, of course, and then that's when I came across the guys in Wolves and Wolves and Wolves and Wolves, and that was my second release. So ever since then, I've been keeping it steadily kind of going, and trying to be up to date on what's current and what's going on, of course. So that's the humble beginning story.
cool. Yeah. How many releases do you have planned for 2020? It seems like a bunch.
Yeah, last year we did about 16,
Wow.
and not all physical, like we're having to do more, digital only stuff, and which has actually worked out pretty well, like, I think a lot of labels nowadays are having to kind of change their model in a sense. Like I realized that like honestly some digital stuff that we did only last year that were only digital did fairly better in a sense of like, however you measure success. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
some digital releases actually obviously got playlisted, and from a branding standpoint, they probably did better maybe than some actual physical releases. So it's like it's kind of a weird thing. Like we're all trying to figure out like what the best format for release is, and it doesn't always have to be a physical release. So it's like, but last year we did about 16 releases. I think 16, yeah, 15, 16. Including some one-off singles and that kind of thing, which we count as releases. So yeah, and then we're kind of pretty much on pace to kind of do about the same this year, man.
Cool.
So it's busy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have, I mean, this is not your full-time job, so you have a day job
Got a day
in
job. Yeah.
doing all this in your spare
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Spare time, which is usually, if you don't work and live in your car in LA, like obviously I live in LA, and it's don't tell the CHP, of course, but I mean I do a lot of my quote unquote work on the highway, and guys, I have an hour and a half commute every day to
Wow.
and from back from work. So it's like I got a lot of time to listen to music, and I got a lot of time to listen to podcasting, a lot of time to, shoot emails away. But luckily I do it with the voice command, so so there's a lot of downtime to kind of do that. So, but yeah,
Yeah, you'd save yourself a lot of time if you moved to Milwaukee like I did. We
yeah,
we don't have traffic.
yeah,
It's like the number one, like people think it's funny because they'll say, "Why did you move to Milwaukee?" And I'm like, "Traffic."
yes,
But in LA is worse than Chicago, but Chicago is up there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you haven't like dealt with, especially living a little bit outside the city, if you haven't dealt with taking an hour and a half to go 15 miles on a consistent basis.
oh man, it's the worst, man. Like I've been commuting for over a decade, but I want to say you kind of get used to it, but I mean at some point it just gets. I think as I get older now, I'm like, F this. It's finally getting older now in my older age, man. But you do what you got to do, right?
Yep. So as you've run the label, obviously over the last handful of years, you learn a lot. You continue to learn with every release. What do you wish you could, if you're a guy starting a label today, what would you go back in time and like tell the Rob of 2014 you should do?
Yeah. Let me see. What would I tell Rob of 2014? I'll tell him the same thing that I kind of told myself, and I actually still kind of like believe in it, is be patient. You know what I mean? Like, it's been 6 years. We're going, actually, yeah, we're on the sixth year now, and, I think a lot of people kind of started, because like, I honestly remember in 2014 when I started it, like, you pay attention to the other labels kind of, jumping out and kind of you starting around the same time as you.
Mm-hmm.
And one after one, a lot of them kind of just went under or didn't really, have the patience for it. And like, there's a handful of still labels that I still kind of compared notes within back then in 2015 that I was like, hey, what are you doing for this and what are you doing for that? And a few of us are still around from, that time where I remember them kind of popping up. But the one thing that I always had was I knew that it wasn't, it was a marathon. It wasn't like, as much as I still wanted to like just take off and jump off, and be an overnight success, like it's not. That's one thing that I'll tell somebody that's starting a label nowadays is like do it, and that's cliche to say like do it for the right reasons, you know what I mean? But
Yep.
it's like being in a band, it's like to keep doing your thing, keep putting out, music that you believe in, but of course go about it the right way. And, if it makes, if it makes sense for you, not only from a financial standpoint, but I mean, if you believe in it and, you do it, and you take the right step to doing it, then, at some point it'll, people will take note, and luckily, over the last few years, like I've taken baby steps to kind of, to doing different stuff and bringing in different parts of it, different parts of the pieces, like bringing in, full-time PR, with Mike at Earshot. And,
Yep.
like it all kind of comes, like it all kind of comes hand in hand, like once you bring on PR, that brings on more opportunities with press, of course. And that brings on like, the bands, they get more recognition, they attract booking agents, they attract, obviously like in a sense of a few bands that I worked with, like bands grow and they move on, like in the case of Spanish Love Songs, who, have moved on and have done great things, like they've obviously moved on to, larger labels, of course, but it's like, kind of getting back to the question about like, well, what I tell somebody starting a label now is like, be prepared to put out your first release and no one give a shit,
Yep.
like be prepared to make posts on social and like get 2 likes, and be prepared to like it's a hustle, man. It's not easy. It's not hard. It's not hard, obviously, but I mean it's not easy kind of like staying motivated to do it. So like that's the first thing I tell you is like you gotta want to do it because actually enjoy doing it. And luckily for me, I still enjoy doing it. So you
Cool.
know,
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned earlier, like pressing way too many of your first release, and that way back in the late '90s, I ran a label for a number of years, uh, and that was the first couple of releases I did. It was the same deal. Like
yeah,
it was, one record I think I pressed 5,000. This is back when people still bought
yeah,
CDs,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not as crazy. 5,000 today is a lot more than what it was
Yeah,
then.
5,000 back then was probably like an equivalent to like 500 now. Like it's still ambitious,
Yeah.
but it's not like, but you guys are probably like on the road and you would move those, Yeah. So, but
Yeah. So if you're starting a label today and you're making vinyl, don't do more than 100. Like, just don't
uh
do more than 100.
yeah,
Unless, I mean,
like,
unless you're on tour all the
you know,
time.
I know, like there's ways to kind of, obviously to balance that, like unfortunately, like even with the, with most plants, you can't do less than 250 or 300, in the range. So like, if you're a band that you're doing it on your own and you're, you don't have a label support or anything kind of like a label involved at all, like you could comfortably press 250 records, 300 records and move them, if you're actively playing shows and, you're actively kind of like promoting your own release, of course, right? But yeah, 500 is a little ambitious unless you're actually actively on the road and, obviously like, slinging your own records on the road, right? So
Did you do the latest Decent Criminal is with you too, right?
I did, yeah. That
Cool.
came out this past year. Yeah.
Nice. I thought that
Yeah.
was you.
Yeah. It's a criminal last year. Um, God, again, they all kind of blend, man. I wonder, I keep thinking, like, was that 2019 or 2018? I think last year was, I'll kind of run through the quick, I think last year we put out the Radar State record, which is the guys from the Get Up Kids and Josh from the Anniversary. So that was in January. We worked with the band out of the UK called the Burnt Tapes.
Hmm.
Um, and then we worked with Problem Daughter out of Salt Lake, Decent Criminal, the Lucky Egypts out of the Bay Area. What else? What am I forgetting? Gosh, I bet you all the bands that I'm forgetting are going to be like, "You forgot us." So, uh, Odd Robot had a split with Tiny Stills last year, which did which is great. But we worked on a ton of stuff, man. I put out the new Burwanger record, solo record. But yeah, man, I'm blanking right now of everything.
That always happens when you're on the spot.
Yeah.
So if I'm a music fan and I want to support, uh, wow, that's some police sirens. Is that by
So
you?
yeah, that's us.
Okay. I
That's
usually get the airplanes flying overhead,
yeah.
but so if I'm just a regular music fan, I want to support Wiretap.
Hmm.
What's the best way to do that?
I'm still gonna say physical product, man. Like as much as I keep talking about moving away from physical product, like I still obviously try to press, every release that we do, there's always the goal of pressing a physical product. So, even though we do the record club, we do a record club every year that has been, done fairly well. It's limited to 50, and we're close to selling out this year again, which is great. Which obviously helps with funding, of course, stuff for pressing vinyl. But at the end of the day, it's still kind of obviously challenged. And when you get any orders, you're like, yes, that helps obviously towards future pressings, of course, right? So if you wanted to support Wiretap right now, it would be to help obviously play pick up a record. Like if you haven't heard of a band, of course, and I invite you to obviously dive into our Bandcamp or Spotify, or obviously sample some of the bands and take a chance, man. Just like we did back in the days, and you'd go into a record store and blindly buy a CD because of the cover art. So
Yep.
I think a lot of people do that nowadays, of course. But I mean, we price our records pretty fairly average, and spending $15 on an LP, and taking a chance, and I'm hoping that most people will be into what we put out. So
Cool. And yeah, and they can always, I guess they can stream it on your Bandcamp,
yeah, of
find one
course.
they like, and then buy the vinyl.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then to get your vinyl, I would assume the best way is to go through the Wiretap website. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We you can find our stuff in a few distros kind of here and there, but for the most part, it's still we keep everything kind of in-house, and we move most of our units through wiretaprecords.com.
Cool. Yeah, I know back in my day, I always had a lot of trouble getting paid from distributors, so anything that
Yeah.
came straight to me was always very welcome.
Oh, so yeah, yeah. I'm still waiting on a few bucks from a few distros, so but
Yep.
I'm not the only one who's experienced that. You know.
No, I had two big ones in the 90s like go bankrupt on me
Yeah.
where I had a couple Smoking Popes records
Oh,
out and
yeah.
we had shipped like 15,000 of one
Oh, geez.
and I paid to press them and
Yeah.
got paid zero.
Dude, that's horrible.
That was painful. So on the flip side from being a fan, what if let's say I play in a band
Hmm.
and I want to do a release on Wiretap, like what are some criteria that you look for when you consider signing a band?
Like it was different when you're starting off with a label, like, if you had asked me that question in 2014, it's a little bit different now. I think when you're a small label, you don't have the luxury of being as selective, as you might want to be. But I mean, nowadays, like, yeah, I'm fortunate now that the submissions are a lot better than they were in 2014. So it's like, that obviously it's taken some time for that to get that way. But I mean, the biggest thing I'd say is that, like, I get anywhere from, you know, the wiretap email gets anywhere from, like, I don't know, 7 to 10 to, on a good week, like 15 submissions a week, which is flattering. It's great that people are submitting, but like a few things, like I'm sure, like I said, like even though I am getting those submissions, like, if bands are doing their due diligence, they're also sending the same email to other labels, of course. And I'm Wiretap's one of 30 label that they're sending their stuff to, right? But with that said, make sure you at least like change, the label name, and not just copy and pasting some of stuff, because you'll be surprised that some people will literally be really, really sloppy and be like, "Hello, people of Fat Records. Hello, people of," it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I know you're sending your stuff to all around, but at least have the decency to actually change the name of the guy who runs the label or whoever runs the label, like so. But above all, like what's going to convince me to actually even if I like the record or like the music, um, if a band's got like if the email is structured in a proper way that you can tell that regardless of them finding support from a label, that they're going to put out the record no matter what. They have a plan. Like the perfect scenario email from a band submission is like, "Hi, we're so and so, band X from whatever city. We've been a band for whatever for this time. We've been slowly kind of growing a following in whatever city. Here's a record we recorded 2 months ago. We'd like to put it out in the fall. It's spring or whatever, right? And have a listen. Here it is, and that's it. If you like it, great. Let us know, right? You'll be surprised how a lot of bands are like, "Hey, we just put our an EP 2 weeks ago. Have a listen, and we have new songs. Let us know if you want to hear those." You know what I mean? Like, send me the music, let me hear it. And if I like it, obviously, like, but I mean, and also the fact that like people are like, "Hey, we just put out an EP 2 weeks ago. Like, why didn't you send this to me 3 months ago? Or
Right.
four
Yeah.
months ago?" And it's like, you know what I mean? Like those are small things that, obviously bands are, like young bands tend to make those mistakes. But I mean, like, give yourself, if you're recording and you have unmastered tracks ready, um, give yourself a few months to actually to give a label some time to obviously put out a proper, proper album release, right? And give yourself a few months. So, that's one thing that a lot of young bands tend to do. And I still get a lot of submissions like, "Hey, this album just came out 2 weeks ago," or whatever, and like, "Hey," or "It's out next week," or "It just came out today." It's like from a label standpoint, it's hard to kind of push a record that's out already.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one thing I'll let bands are like, like give yourself plenty of time of a window to attract a label that kind of help you with support and actually grow the audience and not necessarily even push the record, but help you kind of grow the band's brand. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I'm sort of happy on kind of what Wiretap has done for a few bands. It's like I'm proud of like that. A lot of bands have kind of that not only has the association with Wiretap kind of helped grow their brand, but also on the other end, like help all these bands have helped kind of people be aware of the label. So it's like without bands like Wiretap's nothing, right? It's just a name, but I mean like the more bands that we expose and help people kind of find out about that helps the Wiretap brand. And that's one thing that I'm proud of. You know.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. And I know back in my days doing it, I was always really pretty stoked if a band would like go on to a bigger label. So like it's got to
Sure.
be the Spanish love songs thing for you has to be pretty cool. And as you get more bands that go on to bigger labels, I think that just kind of helps to grow your label over time as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah.
Because people are going to discover the back catalog of Spanish love songs now that if their new album blows up, they're going to go into the back catalog and
Yeah,
find those
absolutely, man. Yeah.
find those
So
early releases.
yeah, actually seen them tomorrow night. They're playing here locally in Pomona, so they're on their tour with the Wonder Years. So I'll be seeing them tomorrow.
Cool.
Which
Yeah,
is,
I tried to get them. We're doing our Rock Room Fest shows in May again, and
oh,
I really wanted them on it, but I think
uh,
they're playing Chicago either just
they're
before or
busy
just
this year.
after.
Yeah, they got a
Yeah,
lot going on this year.
yeah,
So
yeah.
good.
Weren't they with they go with the Menzingers for a
Yeah,
bit?
they were out in I think in the UK. They're overseas with the Menzingers, and they're on. I think they're currently on right now with the Wonder Years. So
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, that's awesome for them.
Cool. Yeah, you made a good point. I think a lot of younger bands and maybe even older bands don't understand kind of how much advance time
Yeah,
that a label would have ideally to prep a release. Because
yeah,
I think a lot of bands like we're done recording, let's put this out next month.
yeah, yeah.
And it's if you're gonna have Mike do PR on it and like
Absolutely.
you and if you're gonna do vinyl, you're talking
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say that.
several months.
Yeah, if there is going to be a physical product, even CDs too. Like I know you can turn on CDs now in like, a week literally, but I mean, especially vinyl, like give yourself, even though turnaround times have gotten better, like at least for me, because like one thing also with the labels, like, you know, in 2014, I was getting, 20-week turnarounds. You've been like the more you work with the plant and, obviously like you give them your business, of course, like, you get better turnaround times, of course. So even though turnaround times are a lot quicker now than they were maybe in 2015, still give yourself 2 to 3 months of actual lead time for pressing,
Yep.
So, of course, I'm sure, you know, Mike at Asian Man can do like 2 weeks turnaround from most plants, and Epitaph and these other labels can turn around stuff a lot quicker. But I mean, give yourself plenty of time to turn around a record for vinyl, of course. But yeah, you're right. Like a lot of bands don't realize that you got to give yourself at least a few months in advance to roll out a proper record, the actual album cycle.
Yeah, because it like PR, like the PR guys like to reach out at least a couple months ahead of the release to all
Sure.
their contacts,
Yeah.
and I know for a lot of the playlisting services on Spotify, they require several weeks
Yeah.
in
Absolutely.
advance.
Yeah, and like what's been working for us, and I think it's not really a different model than a lot of people do, but I mean like it's traditional now to kind of roll out a few singles ahead of time.
Yep.
So it's like if your album's coming out in October, like it's normally traditional to have like obviously your first single come out in whatever August or something like that, or late July, and really have every single kind of feel like its own release. You know, have a single come out in like early August, and then another one come out in mid September, and then obviously lead into the actual release in October. But I mean, like, yeah, give yourself plenty of time. It's like, but also kind of remind yourself that like, yes, like I would argue, don't just put out your record on Bandcamp and hey, it's out, like, but I would recommend against that. But also keep in mind that like no release is kind of traditional now. There really is kind of no rules now. Like you can be Jeff Rosenstock and put out a record on New Year's Day and have it be great, obviously, right? Like, so if you have the luxury of having a captive audience that actually pays attention, there's no rules nowadays, honestly. You know what I mean? So it's like, but traditionally, if you're trying to grow your fan base, yeah, give yourself a few months for sure.
Cool. Where are you? Where do you have your records pressed? By the way, on vinyl.
Early on, I was pressing at Rainbow.
Hmm.
Rest in peace. I guess they're going away now, or
Oh,
yeah, they've. I don't know the whole story, but they are going away now, I guess, due to some landlord issue or something. I don't know the whole story. But I was doing Rainbow for a number of years. But for the past 3 to 4 years, I've been doing A to Z Media. But yeah, so
are those pressed in the USA? Or are they in
they're
pressed
not.
in
They're
Czech?
pressed. They're similar to like Pirates Press. They're
Okay.
they're pressed overseas, and they're brought back here. So
Yeah, I've had some of those. I've worked with Pirates Press once. They were pretty fast.
hmm
Worked with another one who I will not mention that was not fast.
yeah,
So I think I give that advice, I guess, to a band that's gonna press their own record is talk to some friends
sure, yeah.
who have dealt with some of these companies and find one that's
Yeah,
quick.
like I think when I first started, I did, you know, I wanted to keep it in, in the US, but I mean, as a young label trying to obviously be the most cost effective, you do turn to, obviously where you can actually, get the fastest turnaround and obviously for the best price, right? So it's like, but you also stick with what's been working for you, and luckily A to Z has been able to come through on turnarounds, and they've been fairly fairly happy with their service. So you keep going back to what works, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I had a good experience with Pirates Press. Like
Yeah.
they were fast. I'm sure A
Yeah.
to Z is good.
We pressed a few things with Pirates Press, and nothing but good things about those guys too.
And I know in the US, like if somebody's looking strictly US, like United is very good with the quality. If you're just a one-off type band doing it, it can take a very
It
long
takes a
time.
lot of time, yeah, and which was
Yeah.
my experience with that, which is probably why I didn't return there, because it was I was getting 17, 18 week turnarounds, and it's understandable, like but I mean, I've just stuck with the same vendor for the past few years now.
Cool. So what has been what's w- has been like the most successful Wiretap release, whether it be like streams or actual physical sales?
Huh. In terms of number of pressings, um, I would probably decide. I guess I'd say Spanish Love Songs, that first record. Um, Depending on when this is airing, we would have announced a fourth pressing of that first Spanish Love Songs record on a new variant. So, so this will be on its fourth variant, or I'm sorry, fourth pressing now. Which is great. Obviously those will continue to sell fairly well. But in terms of streaming, like I I'd have to look, but I mean I know that a number of releases last year did fairly well. Like we were lucky to have a lot of last year's releases kind of picked up on playlisting, on playlists. A number of our bands got landed on like New Punk Tracks and Punk Unleashed and a lot of the Spotify playlists. So just kind of off the top of my head, like things like that Decent Criminal record did fairly well. Problem Daughter did fairly well. The Radio State record did fairly well, but I mean, overall in stream numbers, like it's hard to say, like,
Yeah.
but I'm stoked on how much of actually someone at Spotify has taken a liking to some of our releases. So like, and that's also part of like, again, it all kind of goes hand in hand. Is like bringing on PR, is a big help in creating awareness, and I'm sure somebody or multiple people probably at Spotify have, are on distribution lists that Mike sends out for every release, and like even continues to say, we just had a latest release with the band The Beautiful Mistake that just got picked up on New Punk Tracks. So it's like it's all we're lucky, we're fortunate that someone at Spotify has been paying attention to us.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. It
Totally.
definitely in the if you look at the monthly Spotify listeners for a band and like the tracks that get added to those playlists,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
pretty
Yeah.
massive. Well, cool. We're coming up. We're just a little over a half hour here, so I'll get ready to wrap it up. But is there anything? When are you doing that Spanish Love Songs fourth pressing? I can release this around the same time.
Haven't announced yet. By the time this comes out, or we'll work that part out. We're just waiting for their album cycle to kind of, from their new record, obviously the record came out a few weeks ago, but I mean, like we were gonna kind of wait for it to kind of have some distance in between their new record and the new pressing. But we'll probably put it for sale probably in a week or so. Um, but yeah, yeah, we'll probably roll that out over the next few weeks.
Cool. So by the time you're watching this, you
Mhm.
can order the Spanish Love Songs new variant, their first
Right.
record on a new variant
Exactly. Yeah.
from Wiretap Records. So go do
Oh,
that.
yeah. Exactly.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah. No, I'll kind of give a few plugs on kind of what's coming up. Like I said, we put out a new record from DC band called American Television in January. That's available now. That's out now. It's called Watch It Burn, and it's out now. We worked with a band out of Sweden called Moving in Stereo, which is out now. They got a new EP called New Blood that is currently out now. You can stream that everywhere as well. Got a new record from a band out of Belgium called FOD. So they got a new record coming out in about a week or so. It's called Sleepville, but it's a story time. It's kind of like a concept album, but it's a punk rock concept album.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting for you guys to hear that. So keep an eye out for that. New record from The Beautiful Mistake. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys. They were kind of heavy hitters, kind of in the mid to late 2000s, kind of emo-ish hardcore scene.
Cool.
So they're back now with a new record produced by Bo from Sailsin. What else we got coming up? New record from band out of Brooklyn called Answering Machine. Yeah, so think some reviewer kind of gave the best kind of example of it, what it sounds like. He compared it to the band Best Coast,
Okay.
if they were a punk band. So think kind of like beachy, kind of like harmonies, kind of like, nice melodies, whatever harmonies, but like obviously with the punk rock sound. So that's a good comparison I could compare it to. And then, we got a few things up our sleeve, going into the summertime. But kind of teasing ahead of time, like I know our friends in Avenues have been teasing for a number of years now of having a
Yeah.
new record, but they've been posting pictures and stuff about the new record. But so hoping, tell those guys to get some tracks over to me so we can get that new record out this year.
Yeah, I know they've been in the studio. Um,
Yeah.
and they're our hometown guys here in
Yeah.
Milwaukee. So as soon as they do get that out, we'll have them come in here and play
Yeah.
some on the
So
Rock Room too.
yeah, so we should have new music from those guys later this year. And then hoping another new record from the guys in Wolves and Wolves and Wolves and Wolves out of North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, their session was the Wolves and Wolves session was
yeah,
great. You should look that up on our channel here. The Spanish Love Song session was really good. Actually, all the Wiretap bands sessions were good. So if you're watching this, scroll through and pick out videos from just about half of the bands that we've mentioned. They've
yeah.
all played here. And, when your newer bands are coming through Milwaukee, to have them get in touch with me.
Cool.
We'll get them in here.
Awesome, man.
Cool. Well, thanks for having some Rock Room After Dark with me. It's like 11:30 p.m. my time, only 9:30 for you.
It's 9:30 here, yeah, which is my
Yeah.
bedtime, dude. So
Well,
right.
midnight's about my bedtime, so I guess we can wrap it up and go to bed.
Cool, man. Dude, I appreciate it, man. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
All right, man. Have a good night, bud. Thank you.
You too.